Good morning, students. Our subject is Water Resources Engineering 1. We are starting the fourth unit. Successfully, we completed 3 units. So, in fourth unit, the first topic is actually a flooding. The name is the flooding, but flooding is different types is there. So, regarding this, we need to take elaborate discussion about the basics of the flooding. That's why I choose the first topic and last topic, that is causes and effects of floods is the first topic. Flood control methods and management is the last topic, but these two are the correlated. That's why I opt these two topics. And in this class, I can elaborate and step by step discuss clearly. Guys, here, so what is flooding? Flood, what is flooding? So, flood is a state of high water level along a river, channel, or on the coast that leads to inundation of land which is not usually submerged. Floods can form where there is no stream, as for example, when abnormally heavy precipitation falls on flat terrain at such a rate that the soil cannot absorb the water, or the water cannot run off as fast as it falls. Here, guys, floods are can floods be man-made? Floods are caused Floods are caused not only by rain but also by human changes to the surface of the earth forming. Due to the some reasons of the farming, deforestation and urbanization increases the runoff from rains, the storms that previously would have caused no flooding today inundate vast areas. Not only do we contribute to the causes of floods, but reckless building in vulnerable areas, poor watershed management, and failure to control the flooding also help create the disaster conditions. Guys, here I want to explain something. Not only do we contribute to the causes of flooding by reckless building in vulnerable areas means actually that area prone to the flooding, but due to some innocent peoples, they don't know about the flooding area, low area, or high area. So due to the lack of awareness, they build up biggest buildings in the vulnerable area. That is also a good cause to flooding fraud. And a poor watershed management also, that's the main drawback. And failure to control the flood also help create the disaster condition. Actually, any government has no proper flood management policies. That is the main drawback, guys. And the distributional pattern of floods in India. If we consider, floods occur in almost all the river basins of the country. The vulnerability atlas of India shows pictorially the areas liable to floods. Around 12%, 40 million hectare of land in India is prone to floods. Distributional pattern of floods in India. Most of the flood affected areas lie in the Ganga basin, in Brahmaputra basin, northwestern river basin, peninsular river basin. Here, okay, in Ganga basin region, Brahmaputra basin comprising of Break, Tista, Torsa, and Subansri, Sankosh, and Dihong, and Lugit. Northwestern river basin, Northwest river basin comprising Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Satluj, Beas, and the Gra. Peninsular river basin, Tapati, Narmada, Mahanadi, Baitarani, Godavari, Krishna, Pennar, and the Kaveri. Coastal regions of Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Orissa, and Kerala. Guys, here distributional pattern of floods in India, Assam, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Orissa are some of the states who have been severely prone to floods. Our country receives an annual rainfall of 1200 millimeters, that is 85% of which is concentrated in 3 to 4 months, that is June to September. Due to the intense and periodic rain, most of the rivers of the country are fed with a huge quantity of water, much beyond their carrying capacity. Guys, here, uh, flood hazard map. Flood hazard map here, area liabilities to the flood. Causes of floods. Some of the major causes are heavy rainfall, heavy siltation of the riverbed reduces the water carrying capacity of the rivers or stream. Blockage in the drains lead to flooding of the area. Landslides blocking the flow of the stream. Construction of dams and reservoirs in areas prone to cyclone, strong winds accompanied by heavy downpour along with storm surge leads to flooding. Impact on build and natural environments. Flooding can flooding can have any of the following effects on housing or other small buildings. Houses washed away. Due to the impact of the water under high stream velocity, the houses are commonly destroyed or dislocated so severely that their reconstruction is not feasible. Flotation of houses caused by rising waters. This occurs when lightweight, typically wood houses are not securely anchored. They can be removed too far from their foundations for relocation and repair. Damage caused by inundation of house, the house may remain intact and on its foundation, but the water damage to materials may be severe. Repair is often feasible, but may require special procedures to dry out properly. Undercutting of houses. The velocity of the water may score and erode the house's foundation or the earth under the foundation. This may result in the collapse of the house or require substantial repair. Damage caused by debris. Massive floating objects such as the trees and other houses may impact on standing houses and cause significant damage. And health related effects. The impact on built and natural environments regarding this health related effects. In floods, deaths usually exceed injuries. injuries. Surgical needs are low and are generally only during the first 72 hours. Floods may create conditions. Floods may create conditions that promote secondary threats of waterborne and vector-borne diseases. A slight increase in deaths from venomous snake bites has been reported but not fully substantiated. Here, guys, impact on agriculture. In most flood-prone countries where economics are based on agriculture, the largest economic flood-related losses are in the agriculture sector. Even in the industrialized United States, 48% of flood losses in 1975 were in agriculture. Obviously, most losses to agriculture result from the drowning of crops. Susceptibility to drowning depends on the type of crop and the duration of flooding. Some are quickly killed by a relatively small amount of superfluous water. Others can resist as much as a few days of submersion. Even crops that thrive on large amounts of standing water will be killed if the water stagnates, as in the Bangladesh example. Other agriculture losses occur in the submersion of crop storage facilities. Grains and other crops will quickly spoil if saturated with water, even for a short time. An additional negative impact on the agriculture sector is the erosion of topsoil by the floods. Here, the impact is indeed long term, resulting in the reduced productivity of the land and possibly eventual abandonment. Flooding, however, is not all bad. For some agriculture areas, flooding is a positive and a necessary event. These lands depend on the periodic silt deposits for added nutrients to the soil. Flooding also serves other advantages, including the filtering or dilution of pollutants that enter the waterways, flushing of nutrients in river systems, preserving of wetlands, recharging of groundwater, and maintaining of river ecosystems by providing breeding, nesting, feeding, and nursery areas for fish, shellfish, migrating waterfowl, and others. Widespread floods can have a significant effect on the long-term economic growth of the affected region. Indirect and secondary effects on the local and national economy may include a reduction in family income, decline in the production of businesses and industrial enterprises, inflation, unemployment, increases in income disparities, and decline in national income. In addition, relief and reconstruction efforts often com- compete with the development programs for available funds. In countries where flooding occurs frequently, floods can create an enormous financial burden. The loss of crops and the need to find alternate sources of income have often caused small-scale migrations of farmers and skilled workers from rural areas to cities. Once established in a city, few return to their homes or farms. Small marginal farms usually cannot survive economically following a major flood. Farmers are often forced to sell their land because they cannot afford to rehabilitate it. This may result in a substantial increase in the number of people migrating to urban areas and thus a related housing shortage. Guys, here flooding and its causes. Debridement is increased here and poor laminating techniques, So this is the step and floodplain, overing, reducing the groundwater. These are all the flooding and the causes in the form of the image. The typical adverse effects. The most important consequence of floods is the loss of life and property structures like houses, bridges, roads, and etc. get damaged by the gushing water. Boats and fishing nets also get damaged. There is a huge losses to life and livestock caused by drowning. Lack of sorry guys. Lack of proper drinking water facilities, contamination of water, groundwater, piped water supply leads to outbreak of epidemics, diarrhea, viral infection, malaria, and many other infectious diseases. Flooding also leads to a large area of agriculture land getting uh, inundated. As a result, there is a huge cross loss. This results in shortage of food and animal fodder. Floods may also affect the soil characteristics. The land may be rendered infertile due to erosion of top layer or may turn saline if seawater floods the area. And types of floods, flash floods, riverine floods, and storm surge. Here guys, flash floods. Flash floods are local floods of great volume and a short duration. A flash flood generally results from a torrential rain or cloud burst on relatively small and widely disappeared streams. Runoff from the intense rainfall results in high flood waves. Discharges quickly reach a maximum and diminish almost as rapidly. Flood flows frequently contain large concentrations of sediment and debris. Flash floods also result from the failure of a dam. Flash floods are particularly common in mountain areas and the desert regions, but are a potential threat in any area where the terrain is steep. Surface runoff rates are high, streams flow in narrow canyons, and severe thunderstorms prevail. Next, riverine floods. Riverine floods are caused by precipitation over large areas or by melting of the winters, accumulation of snow, or by both. These floods differ from flash floods in their extent and duration, whereas flash floods are of short duration in small streams. Riverine floods take place in river systems whose tributaries may drain large geographic areas and encompass many independent river basins. Floods on large river systems may continue for periods ranging from a few hours to many days. Flood flows in large river systems are the distribution of precipitation, the condition of the ground, amount of soil moisture, seasonal variations in vegetation, depth of snow cover, and the imperviousness due to urbanization and directly affects the runoff. Storm surge. Storm surge or tidal surge is an offshore rise of water associated with a low pressure weather system, typically a tropical cyclone. Storm surge is caused primarily by high winds pushing on the ocean surface. The wind causes the water to pile up higher than the ordinary sea level. Low pressure at the center of a weather system also has a small secondary effect, as can the bathymetry of the body of water. It is this combined effect of low pressure and persistent wind over a shallow water body, which is the most common cause of storm surge flooding problems. The term storm surge in casual, non-scientific use is storm tide. This is the refers to the rise of water associated with the storm plus tide wave runoff and freshwater flooding. Flood characteristics, depth of water, duration, velocity, rate of rise, frequency of occurrence, and seasonality. These are the flood characteristics. Forecasting. The ability to forecast flooding is limited to the time during which changes in the hydrological conditions necessary for flooding to occur have begun to develop. The formulation of a forecast for flood conditions requires information on current hydrological conditions such as precipitation, river stage, water equivalent of snowpack, temperature, soil conditions over the entire drainage basin, as well as weather reports and forecasts. The relatively rapid rate of rise and fall makes the period of time above flood stage relatively short. In lower reaches of the larger river systems, where rates of rise and fall are slower, it is important to forecast the time when various critical stages of flow will be reached over the rise and fall. Reliability of forecast for large downstream river systems is generally higher than for headwater systems. And warning. Warning times for peak or over bank conditions can range from a few minutes in cloudburst conditions to a few hours in small headwater drainages to several days in the lower reaches of large river systems. As with forecasting, the time and reliability of the warning increase with the distance downstream where adequate knowledge of upstream conditions exist. Clearly, the amount of information required, the data collection network necessary for collecting the information, the technical expertise required for interpretation, and the communication system needed to present timely information to potential victims or services that many poor and developing nations find difficult to provide. The World Meteorological Organization of the United Nations, through its World Weather Watch and Global Data Processing System, hopes to coordinate efforts to improve forecasting. This is especially important and difficult when conditions creating floods lie outside of the national boundaries of the downstream region. And detection and warning. Flood detection systems can range from inexpensive networks of volunteer rainfall and stream stage observers and simple rule curves to sophisticated networks of telemeter gauges and computer models. An example of low technology flood detection is an informal system of observers who use the existing infrastructure of telephones to send progressive flood information downstream. Methods for warning the public should be well throughout documented and practiced on an annual basis. Ways to disseminate warnings include radio, television, warning series, and public address systems. Users of detection and warning systems should be aware that all members of the public will not respond in the desired manner to warnings. An understanding of how and why people respond to warnings is an essential ingredient in any warning system. Disaster mitigation strategies. The majority of the deaths and much of the destruction created by floods are largely preventable. A great deal can be done to lessen the impact of a disaster. First, first though, the general public as well as engineers, planners, politicians, and others need to understand the nature of the hazard based on that understanding. A decision and a commitment needs to be made to provide mitigation measures to reduce flood damage. Reducing the harmful effects of a flood requires actions on three fronts. Reducing the vulnerability of the physical settlements and the structures in which people live, reducing the vulnerability of the economy and strengthening the social structure of a community so that community crops mechanisms can help observe the impact of a disaster and promote rapid recovery. Possible risk reduction measures, mapping of the flood-prone areas, land use control, construction of engineered structures, flood control, detention, flood-proof, channelization, and flood management. These are the risk reduction measurements. And mapping of the flood-prone area. Historical records give the indication of the flood inundation areas and the period of occurrence and the extent of the coverage. Warning can be issued looking into the earlier marked heights of the water levels in case of potential threat. In the coastal areas, the tide levels and the land characteristics will determine the submergence areas. Flood hazard mapping will give the proper indication of water flow during floods. Land use control. The number of casualties is related to the population in the areas at risk. In areas where people already have built their settlements, measures should be taken to relocate to better sites so as to reduce vulnerability. No major development should be permitted in the areas which are subjected to high flooding. Important facilities like hospitals or schools should be built in safe areas. In urban areas, water holding areas can be created like ponds, lakes, or low-lying areas. Construction of engineered structures. Construction of engineered structures in the floodplain and the strengthening of structures to withstand flood forces and seepage. The building should be constructed on an elevated area, if necessary, built on sills or platform. Flood control. Flood control aims to reduce flood damage. This can be done by decreasing the amount of runoff with the help of reforestation, protection of vegetation, clearing of debris from streams and other water holding areas, conservation of ponds and lakes, etc. Detention facilities. Detention facilities such as dams, store flood waters and release them at lower rates, thus reducing or eliminating the need for major downstream flood control facilities, the construction of which would disrupt the developed areas. Perhaps the greatest disadvantage of detection facilities, assuming a structurally sound facility, is the false sense of security that such structures create among the general public. These facilities are almost never designated to contain the probable maximum flood. Thus, they require a spillway to pass discharges in excess of the design flood. Floodproofing. Retrofit floodproofing of existing buildings is sometimes a viable solution, depending upon the location of the structure within the floodplain and its structural integrity. There are two basic types of floodproofing, active and passive. Active floodproofing is temporary, requiring some positive action on the part of building owners and or occupants immediately before a flood event. It will not be effective if personnel are not available to perform the necessary functions when the flood occurs. Active flood proofing requires some type of flood detection and warning system to give time for the personnel to install the flood proofing devices. In flash flood situations, The personnel may not be available to respond in time. Passive floodproofing is permanent and does not require any action at the time of the flood. Active floodproofing is most effective in areas with long warning lead times. It should not be relied upon if possible in flash flood areas. Floodproofing reduces the risk of damage. Measures include use of sandbags to keep floodwater away, blocking or sealing of doors and windows of houses, etc. Houses may be elevated by building on raised land. Channelization. The construction of open channels is a commonly used method of reducing the size of a floodplain or floodway. To prevent erosion, channels can be lined with grass, wire enclosed, rock, concrete, riprap, or cobalt stones placed a few layers deep. Open channels allow water to enter them at almost any point, thus compensating for inadequate tributary collection systems. Flood management. In India, systematic planning for flood management commenced with the 5-year plans, particularly with the launching of National Programming of Flood Management in 1954. During the last 48 years, different methods of flood protection, structural as well as non-structural, have been adopted in different states depending upon the nature of the problem and local conditions. Structural measures include storage reservoirs, flood embankments, drainage channels, anti-erosion works, channel improvement works, detention basins etc. and non-structural measures include flood forecasting, floodplain zoning, flood proofing, disaster preparedness. Examples. The flood management measures undertaken so far have provided a reasonable degree of protection to an area of 15.81 million hectares throughout of the country. Guys, this is the permanent flood wall. This is the temporary flood wall. This is the uh, embankment and bypass drain, storage basin, floodgate. Guys, here the floodplain management diagram. Here is the basic flood preparedness measures, planning, warning, medical, communication, and essential services. In planning, a disaster preparedness plan that set out the sequence of activities and responsibilities of response personnel must be developed. Warning and evacuation procedures in vulnerable areas must be developed and train personnel in first and aid care and stock necessary medical supplies. In communication systems and messages must be developed to inform the public of health, safety, and security matters. Essential services, hospitals, government buildings, communication systems must be sited for continued operations during an emergency. Okay, guys, thank you guys for all of your patience. Now, I'm going to teach next class in next year, next unit in next class. Thank you.